Why is there a camera inside my baby's night lamp? The woman's voice didn't shake. Only her hands did, clutching the tiny lens like it was a knife she'd just pulled from her own back. In Sao Paulo, widowed tech founder Rafael Carvalho lived on 4 hours of sleep and a lifetime of guilt. Months earlier, a crash on Marginal Pinheiros stole his wife Isabella in an instant and left their 11-month-old daughter Sofia unable to move her legs. Doctors said she might never walk. Rafael heard only one thing: never. So when caregiver after caregiver quit, he hired a quiet cleaner named Nia Johnson, a black woman with steady eyes and a soft, rural accent, and then terrified of losing the last fragile piece of his world, he hid cameras all over the mansion. What the footage showed shattered his suspicion. Nia didn't just mop floors. She turned the living room into therapy disguised as play tummy time. On a bright mat, a teddy placed just out of reach, gentle leg massages, tiny knee bends, songs that made Sofia laugh like she'd forgotten pain existed. The baby began to reach for Nia, to rest her head on her shoulder, to trust. Rafael dug into her past and learned why she moved like a professional. Nia had nearly finished physiotherapy school before tragedy stole her parents, and she'd once cared for a little brother with cerebral palsy. Then the truth exploded. Nia found the cameras. "You never trusted me," she whispered, and walked out while Sofia screamed, "Mama! Mama!" Days later, Rafael found Nia in a crowded shelter, dropped to his knees, and confessed the cameras were fear, but her love was real. This time he didn't ask for forgiveness. With words he smashed every camera with a hammer and chose trust, finally like a man learning how to breathe again. Rafael didn't become controlling overnight. It happened quietly, the way grief always does, slipping into the cracks of ordinary days, until fear felt like responsibility. Every morning he woke before dawn with the echo of metal twisting and glass shattering still ringing in his ears. For a few fragile seconds, he forgot that Isabella was gone. Then he heard Sofia's breathing from the nursery, soft and uneven, and the weight returned. His daughter lay awake in her crib, staring at the ceiling, her small legs still and silent. Babies were supposed to kick to fight the air with joy. Sofia didn't. The doctors called it spinal trauma. Rafael heard it as a verdict on the rest of her life and on his own. 5 caregivers had already quit. Some cried. Some apologized. All of them left. And each goodbye confirmed what Rafael feared most, that loving his daughter wasn't enough to protect her. The company he built from nothing began to crack under his absence. Board members spoke gently, suggested leave rest therapy. Rafael nodded and worked harder. Work was the only place where outcomes still made sense. At home, everything felt fragile, temporary. One wrong choice away from collapse. That was why trust became impossible. When Nia arrived, calm and unassuming, something in her steadiness unsettled him. Sofia smiled an unearned miracle, and instead of relief, Rafael felt panic. Hope was dangerous. Hope could be taken away. So he told himself the cameras were protection, not betrayal. A safety net, not a cage. Yet late at night, alone in his office, Rafael replayed the footage. Not like a guard, but like a man searching for proof that the world hadn't completely turned against him. And slowly, against his will, fear began to loosen its grip, because on the screen he didn't see neglect or carelessness. He saw patience, tenderness, and a woman treating his broken child like she was already whole. Nia's arrival didn't feel dramatic. There was no swelling music, no sudden shift in the air, just a soft knock at the door, and a woman standing there with a worn backpack and a posture that spoke of endurance. Nia Johnson didn't try to impress Raphael. She didn't rush her words or over-explain her qualifications. She simply listened as he laid out the truth: an infant who couldn't move her legs, a house heavy with grief, and a line of caregivers who never stayed. When he finished, she asked only one thing. "May I see her?" In the nursery, Sophia lay awake, eyes fixed on nothing. Raphael had grown used to that stillness. It terrified him, but it was familiar. Nia approached slowly, as if sound itself might hurt. She knelt beside the crib, smiled, and whispered, "Hello, princess." And then something impossible happened. Sophia smiled back. Not a reflex, not a twitch. A real smile, small, brief, but undeniable. Raphael felt it hit him like a crack in ice. Nia didn't celebrate the moment. She didn't look up to claim it. She simply stayed there talking softly, letting Sophia study her face as if memorizing it. When she finally turned to Raphael and said, "I can start tomorrow," her voice carried no desperation, only certainty. That night, Raphael lay awake, replaying the image of his daughter's smile. It should have filled him with relief. Instead, it unsettled him. Because hope had entered the room without asking permission. Because a stranger had reached his daughter in seconds when he had spent months failing. Nia didn't look like a miracle. She looked ordinary. And that frightened him most of all, because if someone so quietly kind could matter this much, then losing her would hurt more than he was ready to survive. Raphael made the decision at 3 a.m, staring at the ceiling while Sophia slept in the next room. Grief had trained him to expect disaster, to believe that anything precious was temporary. Trust to him felt like negligence, so he called it protection when he ordered the cameras small, discreet, almost invisible. He installed them himself in the dead of night, his hands steady, his heart anything but. One in the living room clock, one in the kitchen fan, one hidden inside Sophia's night lamp. He told himself a good father watched everything. On Nia's first official day, Raphael sat in his glass-walled office, pretending to read reports, his phone glowing in his palm. When Sophia cried, he froze. Then he watched Nia rush in, not walk, not hesitate, rush. She lifted Sophia with care, changed her diaper with practiced gentleness, murmuring words that felt like reassurance more than routine. Raphael exhaled. This was fine. Normal. Then Nia did something no one else had done. She carried Sophia to the living room, rolled out a bright mat Raphael had bought months ago and never dared to use, and laid the baby gently on her stomach. Raphael's pulse spiked. Doctors hadn't suggested this. Fear clawed at him, but Nia lay down beside Sophia, eye to eye, speaking calmly, invitingly, as if asking her to come back into her own body. A teddy bear appeared, placed just out of reach. Encouragement followed. Soft laughter. Purpose disguised as play. Raphael forgot to blink. Sophia reached. Failed. Tried again. Her arms trembled. Nia didn't rush. She waited patient as faith. Then came the massage tiny circles on legs everyone else had treated like glass. A song hummed low, old, and steady. And Sophia laughed. Not politely. Fully. The sound punched the air from Raphael's lungs. Behind the screen, the cameras stopped feeling like control. They became witnesses. And for the first time since the accident, Raphael realized he wasn't watching danger unfold. He was watching a miracle he never believed he deserved. For 3 days straight, Raphael barely slept. The cameras no longer felt like instruments of suspicion. They became windows he couldn't look away from. Between meetings and midnight silences, he replayed every second of Nia's time with Sophia, slowing the footage, studying her hands, her timing, her restraint. What he saw unsettled him, not because it was wrong, but because it was too right. Nia moved with intention. Every touch had a reason. When she placed a pillow near Sophia's side, it wasn't comfort, it was resistance. When she sang, it wasn't distraction, it was rhythm, breath, timing. Raphael began to recognize patterns, the way Nia waited for Sophia to initiate movement, the way she celebrated effort instead of success, the way she never once treated the child like she was broken. Sophia responded with her whole body. She laughed more. She reached farther. She lifted her head longer. And most of all, she leaned into Nia as if her small body had finally found a place it trusted. Late one night, Raphael paused a frame where Sophia's tiny fingers were curled into Nia's shirt. Her face pressed into the hollow of Nia's neck. The baby was asleep, deeply peacefully, in a way Raphael had not seen since before the accident. Something tight inside his chest loosened, then broke. This wasn't duty. This wasn't employment. This was attachment. This was love. And that terrified him, because love meant loss was possible again. Raphael began to notice details he couldn't explain away. The precise angles of Sophia's knees during massage. The slow progression of challenges disguised as games. The calm confidence that never wavered. It wasn't intuition alone. It was knowledge. Training. History. The cameras had revealed the truth he wasn't ready to face. The woman he hired to clean his house was quietly rebuilding his daughter from the inside out. And with every frame, Raphael felt himself crossing a line from protector to witness, from control to awe, watching a stranger do what he had believed no one ever could. The truth surfaced quietly, the way buried things always do, without drama, but with weight. Late one evening, unable to silence the questions gnawing at him, Raphael typed Nia Johnson into a search bar. What appeared felt like a life paused mid-breath, an old university profile unfinished. Physiotherapy student, nearly graduated. Then nothing. No updates. No career. Just silence. He came home early the next day and found Nia on the couch, Sophia asleep in her arms, fingers tangled in the fabric of Nia's shirt like she was holding on to gravity itself. The sight made Raphael's chest ache. He sat across from them, voice low. "Why didn't you tell me you studied physiotherapy?" The color drained from Nia's face. For a long moment she said nothing. Then the words came, not rushed, not rehearsed. Her parents had been killed in a robbery. She'd been forced to choose survival over school. And before all of that, there had been a little brother born with cerebral palsy gone before his 4th birthday. "I learned how to help him, before I ever learned the theory," she said softly. "When he died, I thought maybe I'd failed him." She looked down at Sophia, her thumb brushing the baby's cheek. "When I saw your ad, I didn't come for the job. I came because I couldn't walk away again." Raphael felt the room tilt. All the precision he'd admired wasn't deception. It was devotion shaped by loss. The cameras, the doubts, the distance, none of it mattered anymore. What mattered was the woman in front of him carrying her grief with grace, offering her broken knowledge to heal another child. And for the first time since his wife died, Raphael understood something terrifying and beautiful. Some people don't arrive to replace what was lost. They arrive to help you survive it. What followed was not sudden or loud. It was quiet, almost shy, like something fragile, learning it was safe to exist. After that conversation, the air between Raphael and Nia softened. There was no longer the stiff distance of employer and employee, no careful measuring of words. There was understanding, respect, and something unnamed that lived in the pauses between them. Sophia felt it first. She began reaching for Nia, not just for comfort, but with certainty. Tiny arms lifting the moment Nia entered the room, her face lighting up, as if the world had just corrected itself. One late afternoon, as Nia prepared to leave, Sophia lay on the mat, watching her pack her bag. Then the baby's face crumpled. She cried not a tired whimper, but a desperate sound that tore through the room. She dragged herself forward, palms burning against the floor, eyes locked on Nia. And then the word came clear and unmistakable. "Mama." The sound struck Raphael like a blow. Nia froze, her breath catching, as if the room had lost its oxygen. She knelt, gathered Sophia into her arms, and the baby clung to her with a strength that didn't belong to someone so small. There was no confusion in that embrace, no hesitation, only belonging. Raphael watched throat tight as the truth settled into him. This wasn't replacement. It was addition. Sophia hadn't lost her mother again. She had found another form of love. From that day on, care became mutual. Raphael left small notes of gratitude. Nia cooked dinners she wasn't asked to make. They shared glances that lingered too long, conversations that stretched into evenings' silences that felt full instead of awkward. And somewhere between bedtime songs and shared coffee cups, Raphael realized the unthinkable had happened. In the space where grief once ruled, love had begun to grow slowly, carefully, but undeniably alive. The moment shattered without warning. It wasn't anger. At first, it was silence. Nia stood in Sophia's room, frozen, staring at the tiny red blink hidden inside the night lamp. Her breath slowed, then stopped altogether. One camera became two. Two became many. By the time Raphael stepped into the living room, Nia was holding one in her palm, her face pale, her eyes no longer soft. "You watched me," she said. Not a question. A verdict. Raphael tried to speak, but the words tangled in his throat. Protection. Fear. Trauma. None of it survived the look on her face. Nia's voice broke anyway. "Everything I told you about my parents, my brother, my guilt, you already knew, didn't you?" The trust she had given freely collapsed in on itself, sharp and final. "You never believed in me. Not really." She packed quickly, hands shaking. Raphael followed, pleading, explaining, unraveling, but the damage was already done. When Sophia woke and saw the bag, she screamed. She reached for Nia, crying "Mama" again and again, her small body trembling with panic. Nia knelt, kissed her forehead, tears falling freely now. "I'm sorry, my love," she whispered. "I can't stay where I'm not trusted." And then she was gone. The house fell into a silence, worse than grief. Sophia stopped eating. She cried through the nights, calling for a mother who didn't answer. Raphael watched the empty rooms, the unused mat, the quiet lamp, and understood too late what he had destroyed. The cameras hadn't protected his family. They had proven the one thing that truly mattered. Love cannot survive where trust is missing. And for the first time, Raphael faced the truth he'd been avoiding since the accident. Fear hadn't kept him safe. It had cost him everything that was finally beginning to heal. The days without Nia were not quiet. They were unbearable. Sophia unraveled first. The laughter disappeared, then the appetite. She pushed bottles away, arched her tiny body in anguish, and screamed until her voice turned hoarse. At night she woke gasping, reaching into the dark, crying the same word again and again, like a prayer that went unanswered. "Mama." Each time Raphael lifted her, she stiffened, her grief too big for his arms. He had never felt so useless. The progress she had made vanished as if it had never existed. The mat lay untouched. The teddy sat where Naya had left it, accusing in its stillness. Sophia stopped reaching, stopped trying. It was as though her body had learned hope, and then learned it could be taken away. Raphael tried to replace what was lost with professionals. 2 caregivers came. Neither lasted a day. Sophia screamed until she gagged, turned her face away, shut down completely. One woman backed away in fear. Another whispered apologies and left. Raphael didn't blame them. He blamed himself. At work, everything collapsed. Meetings blurred. Contracts slipped through his fingers. His partners spoke of intervention, of leave of doctors. He nodded, signed papers he didn't read, and came home to a house that felt hollowed out. At night, he watched old footage not to spy, but to punish himself. There was Nia singing. There was Sophia laughing. There was life. And in that silence, Raphael finally admitted what he had been avoiding. Sophia wasn't just missing a caregiver. She was grieving. And so was he. He had mistaken control for love, vigilance for protection. Now, with his daughter fading and his heart breaking open, Raphael understood the truth too late. Fear had not saved them. Fear had taken her away. On the 4th morning, Raphael stopped pretending he could endure it. He left Sophia with his mother, kissed her damp hair, and walked out of the house with a clarity that hurt. He no longer searched for control or explanations. He searched for her. The address he had led to an empty apartment and a landlord who shrugged. A shelter, the man said. East Side. That was all. Raphael drove for hours, moving from place to place, his tailored jacket feeling absurd among concrete walls and crowded rooms. At the 4th shelter, he saw her. Naya sat on the edge of a narrow bunk, thinner than he remembered, her shoulders curved inward. In her hands was a photograph, Sophia's smile taped and worn at the edges. The sight broke him. Nia, he said her name barely more than breath. She looked up, then away. You shouldn't be here. She isn't eating, he said, voice cracking. She doesn't sleep. She calls for you like the world ends every night. And he swallowed hard. I am ending with her. Raphael sank to his knees on the shelter floor, indifferent to the stairs. The cameras were fear-talking. Trauma. But they showed me the truth that you are good, that you love her, that I love you. He lifted his eyes. I don't want control. I want trust. I want us. Nia's tears fell silently. I loved you, she whispered. But I thought I wasn't enough. He took her hands. You are not a replacement, he said. You are the choice. Sophia chose you, and I choose you without conditions. For a long moment, the world held its breath. Then Nia leaned forward, resting her forehead against his. In that fragile space between broken and brave, they chose to walk back together. Nia returned with Raphael that same night, not because the pain had vanished, but because love had finally been spoken, without fear. When they stepped into the house, Sophia was in Raphael's mother's arms, crying softly, exhausted from grief. The moment her eyes found Nia, everything changed. Her arms flew open with a strength that defied her small body, and her cry broke into a desperate joy. Mama. The word landed in the room like truth itself. Nia caught her, held her close, whispering promises into her hair. I'm here. I'm not leaving. Later, when the house finally fell quiet, Raphael did the one thing he should have done from the beginning. He gathered every hidden camera, one from the clock, one from the fan, one from the night lamp, and placed them on the living room table. I don't want this secret between us, he said, his voice steady but bare. I want you to see what I'm choosing. He handed Nia a hammer. Together, they destroyed them. Metal cracked, plastic shattered. With each blow, something old and poisonous loosened its grip. The sound echoed like release. When it was done, Raphael swept the broken pieces into the trash and turned to her. "No more watching," he said. "Only trusting." Nia touched his face, searching for doubt, and finding none. Their first kiss was gentle, almost hesitant, born not of passion but of permission. To begin again. To be human. Then Raphael made another promise. He would pay for Nia to finish her studies not as charity, but as belief. "Your gift deserves a future," he said. She agreed on one condition, that he would let himself live again without guilt. That night, Sophia slept between them, breathing peacefully. And for the first time since loss entered that house, the future felt possible, not perfect, but real, built on the fragile, powerful act of choosing trust. Months passed, not loudly, but beautifully. Healing didn't arrive like a miracle, it arrived like routine. Morning sunlight on the floor, soft laughter between exercises, patience disguised as play. Nia studied again, textbooks spread across the kitchen table, while Sophia napped her small chest, rising and falling in steady peace. Every afternoon, therapy returned to the living room, not as obligation, but as joy. Cushions became mountains. Toys became invitations. Songs became courage. Sophia changed first. She learned to sit without support, then to pull herself forward with fierce determination. Her arms grew strong. Her laughter returned brighter than before. And one afternoon, surrounded by quiet and love, she stood. Just for a second. Then another. When she took her first trembling steps, the room collapsed into tears. Raphael fell to his knees. Nia covered her mouth, sobbing. Sophia walked not perfectly, not far, but enough to rewrite everything they had been told was impossible. Life followed. Love deepened. Raphael proposed without spectacle, only truth. Nia said yes with shaking hands. Later came vows whispered in their living room, Sophia walking the aisle with petals in her fists, steady and proud. Years later, the house was no longer silent. Feet ran down hallways. A clinic named after a lost little boy helped children find strength. And one evening, Nia placed Raphael's hand on her stomach and smiled. "We're growing again." What began with grief, fear, and hidden cameras ended with something braver than certainty. It ended with trust. And a family built not by perfection, but by choosing love again and again. This story reminds us of something painfully simple and profoundly true. Love cannot grow under surveillance, but it can flourish under trust. Fear may feel like protection, but unchecked, it becomes a prison. Healing begins the moment we choose courage over control, openness over suspicion, and people over our past wounds. Sometimes the people who save us don't arrive loudly. They arrive quietly and ask us to trust again. What would you have done in Raphael's place? Would you have forgiven? Would you have trusted again? Share your thoughts in the comments. If this story touched your heart, subscribe, and stay with us for more stories that remind us healing is possible, and that second chances can change everything.